Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Grow with Glow. I'm going to sit down with Olympic gold medalist 3 times over in beach volleyball, Misty May-Treanor. Misty is the GOAT. She's recognized as the greatest of all times. She won her 3rd gold medal and decided to finish on her terms and start a family. Her partner at the time, Carrie, decided to go for a 4th medal and unfortunately came up short. And I think the difference in the X factor that the announcers in the booth as well as the people in the stand agreed upon is Misty wasn't there. Look, she's phenomenal as an athlete. I think she's even more phenomenal as a human being. And I'm going to take her on a little different journey this time because I'm going to ask her some things about mothering and what she does to be a gold medal form in parenting and what she does for her routine. We get into chiropractic care and the benefits that she has from chiropractic care as over 20 years as my patient. But most importantly, you're going to get to know her and her journey to winning 3 Olympic gold medals. She has been mentoring and the inspiration for Sarah Hughes, who's expected to win gold in the Paris 2024 Olympics. Sarah's inspiration, the poster in her room, and the person who still gives her coaching has been Misty May-Treanor. There's a really cool connection between the two. There's a photo of Sarah at 8 years old with Misty giving her advice. It has continued for the last 20 years. So a really special story will be unraveling here at the Paris 2024 Olympics. But this interview is all about Misty. It's all about her journey. And we are going to sit down and do a second interview. So please watch this knowing it is a part 1. Then we will get into some performance hacks, habits, things she's done for years and way ahead of the curve of other athletes that I was working with at the time. And some were in the NFL and some were in the NBA. And Misty was ahead of the curve in the IQ of understanding the human body, understanding that health is an inside-out job. And when she struggled, she goes in. She didn't look outwards for help. She went in. And this is becoming a theme as I interview these athletes. In the NBA with Bays, here in the beach with Misty. It's the going in and doing the work from an inside-out belief system and the philosophy that becomes a metaphor for life. I'm super stoked for you to meet Misty May-Treanor. Again, she's been a patient for over 20 years. She and her husband, Matt Treanor, who was a professional baseball player for over a decade in Major League Baseball, have 3 beautiful children, and they're in the office for chiropractic care every Tuesday for what they call Tune-Up Tuesday. The truth is, I wind up laughing really hard when they're in there because Matt is hilarious. The girls are beyond cute, and the relationship they have is really being fostered by 2 phenomenal parents. So this is an interview I would advise you, potentially listen to it with your child. If you're a parent, you've been spending time going to club matches, games, maybe you fly for tournaments, then really dial it in because her mental acuity on the athletic approach and the performance side of things is second to none. And if you can listen to this with your child, or maybe you're a coach and you want to compare notes with kids on your team, I think there'll be some huge takeaways and maybe some points as a parent you've had of frustration with your own children, your own athletes. And the way Misty describes it, it kind of cuts through it, and I would be hard-pressed to find a parent who disagrees with the 3-time Olympic gold medalist in beach volleyball. She was the Collegiate Player of the Year 2 times over. National champion 36-0 her senior year. She is the queen of the beach. She's the GOAT in beach volleyball, and that isn't even argued anymore. She's just a phenomenal human being, and I'm really excited to share with you a patient, a friend, a mentor, someone that my girls look up to, and just a really cool person who's going to be in the booth for the Paris Olympics, Misty May-Treanor. Hey everybody, I'm super excited today to be sitting down with one of my all-time favorite athletes, Misty May-Treanor. She is a 3-time Olympic gold medalist in beach volleyball. And I'm going to throw some superlatives and some extras in here because I believe it's true. She's the GOAT. She's the queen of the beach. She's the best to have ever played the game. She also exploded the sport after winning her 3rd gold medal. You just saw this huge influx of scholarships in the NCAA level for women playing beach volleyball. The popularity of the sport grew. And not just grew, it's now the fastest growing game for young girls in America. And I'm going to tell you in large part, if not in totality, because of her zest for the game, the way she played the game, and who she is off the court. So I know I threw some extras on top, but I really feel it's deserving. Misty's been a patient of mine for years and become a friend, and I value so much of what she does off the court, and I want you to kind of get to know her a little bit today. So I would like to say a huge welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I remember meeting you for the first time down on at your smaller office.
The PCH office.
Yes, the PCH office.
Yep. Pacific Coast Highway. So Route 1 in California, my dream practice was on Route 1, California Highway. Pacific Coast Highway goes all the way up through, San Francisco. It's a scenic drive. And being a kid from the Midwest shoveling snow, I go, if I pull this off, because it was an if question back then, I get through chiropractic school, I want to have a practice in a beach town. This is what I want to do.
And you haven't left.
Yeah, no, at all. And honestly, one of the biggest names to walk in the door was you. And when we started going through your preparation and getting you ready for Olympics and the gold medals, like I knew what your potential was just as an athlete. But what I was always shocked by after our conversations, our encounters, is like your mental fortitude. So I want to get into that a little bit today too, because, and I would stand by this today, when I first met you, I just said, I don't think I've ever met an athlete that has that much strength between the ears. Like you just can't be moved off your mission. Like you're super diligent, you're consistent. You just have the discipline and the drive to do it. So a little bit of that I want to share today because it was just so unique and just seeing your approach. So kind of going back, what got you into beach volleyball?
So I actually grew up in Santa Monica. I was born and raised there until 8th grade. Then we made the move to Orange County in Costa Mesa. Both my parents met at Santa Monica Pier. They owned a pizza shop. And actually I was there just a couple weeks ago and took the kids down there. The pizza shop is no longer there. A lot of things have changed. But my mom was a tennis player at UCLA and then caught the volleyball bug when she met my dad. So any off time I was down there, I mean, I have pictures of myself in diapers down there. I actually have, I got to step on the court with Wilt Chamberlain when I was learning. And I played in my first tournament with my dad when I was 8 years old. So being in Santa Monica, and there's another beach down there called State Beach where a lot of the famous players I grew up watching played. That was my playground. Mm-hmm. I did other sports, though. I played soccer and did dabble in tennis and danced. Then when we made the move to Orange County in 8th grade, Huntington Beach became my training spot. So it was really my parents and the location where I was raised.
But I would say that really was the heartbeat of beach volleyball. Right, like that Santa Monica Pier and that location, especially that era. Like, so when I give you those accolades, like you are the GOAT, you are the face of the sport, it goes back to Misty in diapers, playing in it. But it was a competitive tournament at 8 years old. And
it was I was playing against adults, yes.
Adults, just to clear that up, because your dad, Butch, who's a legend in the volleyball world, like he was like, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to try to win at 8 years old against adults.
Yeah, so he ran beach tournaments, and my dad, he was a 68 Olympian indoor. So a lot of us players now, they do have the collegiate scene, and a lot more players are making the turn to beach in high school or at an earlier age. Mm-hmm. But most of us started our go indoor and then found our way to the beach or would use beach as a hobby. But yeah, I was playing with adults when I was 8 years old, and it was the big court. Now it's a smaller court, but it was a large court that you see indoor, and I could only bump the ball, and I think I underhand served. But my dad would put me at the net, and he was so good he played the whole rest of the court. But that was my first tournament, was at 8.
Huge. And so because it's a bigger court, meaning there's more ground to cover. I mean, it's a lot more work than it is now. It's shrunken down because it's hard to move in the sand. But so like really just stack the odds against you early. But it just, I think, maybe speaks to that mental fortitude, right? Like, okay, this is it. This is what we're going to do. Just because you're 8, just because you're smaller and you're not as strong as the people on the other side of the net, it doesn't matter. It was just like, we're going to figure this out. And I think that carries through in all that you do. Your mom, a phenomenal athlete, tennis player, like sick athlete in her own right. And then just kind of bringing that together of that particular time at Santa Monica Pier is really where the culture of beach volleyball. This would be like kids growing up in Canada, everybody plays hockey.
Everybody plays hockey.
If you're in New York City, like how many
or rugby, right?
Yeah. But how many point guards have come out of like New York City? Because it's like, well, that's just what you do. How many soccer players? And so that idea, just to kind of put that in reference, like Santa Monica Pier in that era, and your dad being a 6'8" Olympian, just really kind of set the table. But then to carry through that and follow through, I think is huge for the accomplishments that you've made.
And I think definitely what helped was we didn't have the junior division or tournaments like they do now.
Right.
And I just recently read something, I can't remember where I read it, but another athlete was talking about how sometimes the kids in Europe develop faster because they could be 16 playing on a professional team with adults. So a lot of times you're playing against adults.
Right.
And that makes you better instead of playing against your own age level. And I think that's what kind of catapulted my game too, or why I was able to excel at the way I did, was I was surrounded by adults. I was playing adults when I was a kid. So I was learning from players that had been there, but also playing faster and people that hit harder. And
all of it, right? And just managing all those things, the speed of the game, the size, the strength, and then just making adaptations. So, Misty, when it comes to performance athletes, specifically Olympic athletes, what would you say the relationship is with chiropractic care?
Oh, chiropractic care, it's part of the family.
Right on.
I would say most Olympic athletes, I know myself, I would fit into that mold, uses chiropractic care at the games as well. It just keeps us in our normal environment, kind of normal routine. But it's more than that, it's the mental side as well. Just staying in that, you want to be at your peak performance. So using chiropractic care, especially if we're using it at home, you got to maintain.
Love it. So whatever the routines are previously in training, getting ready for something like the Olympics, you would maintain those habits or routines.
The Olympics is probably the worst time to change up a routine.
Awesome. I love it.
It's probably the worst time.
I love it. And for anybody listening, chiropractic care is more than just pain, and that's why athletes use it for performance.
I mean, he got me in London.
Let's go.
He was there in London. I mean, his soothing voice, nice adjustments. It kept me zen, got me the gold.
I love it. Love it. I would say I've told that Batman story a couple times when you're like, oh, you're Batman. And I'm like, what's that? You're like, oh, you drop your toe. And I'm like, oh, is it creepy Batman or is it like cool Batman?
You have your adjustment voice and then normal Brad voice.
That's right.
So doctor voice.
In the hallway, doctor. And then as soon as I step in the adjusting area, it's like Batman.
And then I'm sure your kids will say you have your game voice.
Oh, for sure. That's why it's a little haggard today. It's like, come on, ref. They're like, you haven't even started yet. I'm like, I'm just warming up. I'm just getting ready to chew out the refs. Okay, so as an Olympic gold medalist, 3 times over, I might add, 3-time Olympic gold medals in beach volleyball, what have you taken as a champion athlete and spouse and kind of funneled that into motherhood?
I would like to say as being a champion athlete, organizing my time. I would like to say that. I'm still working on that. I think organizing time, being able to get your kids from place to place is difficult. And laying out a schedule like we do as athletes, we have a specific schedule of morning, waking up, what we're going to eat, what we're packing for lunch, when we're getting to our training and vice versa, everything down that list. I'm still working on that, but that's one thing I've learned through being an athlete. The other thing I think I try to carry into motherhood is patience. I feel like I was a patient player on the court, and I stay as patient as I can with my kids. Everybody learns at a different pace. Everybody has a different style of learning, and it's my job as an athlete to figure out what the coaching style my coaches were trying to teach me and communicate with them on maybe the style that I need or taking bits and pieces from them, just like my kids. So each kid I have to communicate with differently to see the learning happen. So I've learned patience and to understand that everybody learns at a slower pace. It's a marathon, right? And that's what we say in sports. It's even though it feels like a sprint, the faster you sprint, the more mistakes you make. It's a marathon. It's things will happen. Yeah. It just takes time.
I mean, those are great answers, though, because anybody who has children has probably already figured that out. If you have multiple children, they're all different. If you have two, you probably have two different kids. But the more you have, the more you realize they all have their language. They all have their love language. They all have ways that you can choose to correct behavior. And it's not the same for anybody, right? I mean, usually it's like you have three very different girls in your house.
No, exactly. You can be harsh on one, and then the other one, you have to be a little more sensitive. And it's trying to figure it out. If it doesn't work the first time, and this goes as an athlete, if it doesn't work the first time, back to the drawing board, what can I change or what can I say differently to make that happen? And as athletes, that's what we do. Outcome doesn't happen the first time. We have to go back to practice, back to the drawing board, try something different, maybe tweak a little, technique here and there, and then you see it happen, and it may have to happen a couple times in order to see the goal.
This is gold medal advice in mothering.
So, and it's something, but patience, I think, with kids is key. I feel like we're in such a rat race and technology and different things, and everybody wants the now. Yeah. And you just have to step back a little bit. And I always think about when I was growing up, how much slower life technically was. Yeah. And kind of take it back, and you got to slow it down yourself. But you and I were talking about also too, everybody can't be patted on the back. If we keep constantly patting our kids and, hey, you did this good, they never know when they fail. They think they are upsetting you, or they feel like a failure themselves. You have to show them the bad, right, as well as the good. Yeah, and as an athlete, yes, we need to be held accountable and be shown our mistakes so we can correct them. You can't always see the good things. Right. So. Being in touch with reality. But I love that with the kids, just having different communication styles and the overriding theme of just be patient. Like kids need patience. They need a second rep. They need a third rep. And that's a great metaphor really from sports carrying into raising great humans. And consistency, right? And being consistent. The best teams are always the most consistent teams. They may not have the highest skill, but they're the most consistent, doing things day in, day out the same. Okay, so let's go from parenting advice, which was gold, by the way, and in and of itself, phenomenal. And let's get back to volleyball. Talk to me about Cal State Long Beach. You were the Player of the Year twice and a national championship where you were 36-0. Is that right? Right. I was a two-time Player of the Year as a setter. Had never run an offense until I got to, well, I can't say that because in high school, my freshman year, I was able to set ones. One is a quick set that you set to a middle and they hit it out of your hand. But I was a setter my freshman year in high school, but then I hit the rest of my time at Newport Harbor. Then I got to college. I was recruited as an outside hitter. I was the number one recruit in high school, and I turned down a lot of schools that I say the names now, and kids are like, you turned that down? What? Right. But the way volleyball is shaped, it's changed. The Midwest is very strong now, and you got teams on the East Coast, when before it was very West Coast dominated. Yeah. So I chose Cal State Long Beach because I'm only 5'8.5", 5'9" with shoes on. And I felt if I wanted to play internationally, like a lot of the players I idolized went and played professionally overseas, I can't be a 5'8" hitter, unless one of my favorite players is Maria Luis from Cuba, who had like an insane vertical. Unless you're her, I was like, I have to probably make a positional change. But I didn't expect to do that my freshman year. So going into Cal State Long Beach, freshman year, they took me aside and made me the setter. So for 2 weeks straight my freshman year, I didn't do anything with a ball, and learned the whole setting position. So Debbie Green, who lives in Seal Beach as well, she was an 84 Olympian, is the one that taught me how to run an offense and set. And I was two-time Player of the Year, I can't say I led the team because we had fantastic players. I miss my teammates would say that though. So, but I was one of the captains, and we led our team to the first NCAA undefeated team, 36-0. That's awesome. We beat Penn State. My senior year, I played on the national team for my junior summer, and then left after college to go play with the national team. And then I made a decision to leave the indoor game at the end of 1999 after Winnipeg Pan American Games, and then got a call from Holly McPeak, and that's kind of where this whole beach journey
So I'm like patiently waiting for you to, because there's a couple of things I think really are important there for listeners. Number one is you turn down schools that kids now are like, well, what are you doing? To me, when you say no requires courage, and you knew what you wanted, what you didn't want. And I still see that through today. It kind of goes into my intro of you, like the mental strength you have is like, that's a great school. Maybe for someone else, it's just not what I want to do. And I know my path. And I think a lot of that is going in and knowing who you are and what you want, truly what you want, and then not letting outside influences pull you off that. Like, you're just like dead on it.
What was it? We had back then, I don't think they do this now, is we had home visits. Mm-hmm. So the college coaches, I think,
come to your home.
I can't remember if it was as many home visits or there were at least 5. There were home visits. So they'd come to your house and see your home and, sit down with your family and sell the school.
Right, totally.
And one coach in particular from Cal came, and he was a family friend anyways. But what he said kind of switched our thinking as a family. He said, you have to pick a school that you would want to be at if you weren't playing anymore or you got hurt.
Which is why I love doing this podcast, because this applies to people playing lacrosse. It applies to people playing football, basketball. It happens. We don't wish that on anybody. It happens, right? Like through those 4, maybe 5 years, I kid in my house and say, college could be the best 7 years of your life.
And you want to feel at home when you're at a university. You want to feel connected. I hate seeing, and I was a junior college coach, and I hate seeing the amount of transfers there are now. Yeah. I don't remember there being that many when I was playing. Maybe you'd get 1 or 2, but now it's for other reasons and besides not liking the school,
Right.
So when he said that, it turned on this light bulb like, oh, okay, I need to find a place that I would feel comfortable at if I wasn't playing. And I turned down Stanford because I didn't see myself at Stanford. And then 2, if you're watching this and you have young athletes, don't waste coaches' time. If there's an environment you don't see yourself in, like I'm not a winter person, don't even entertain the schools and the East Coast. Like, don't waste the coach's time. I think the worst thing is just be honest and open, but you have to sit down and figure out, am I a warm weather person? Do I like this? Do I like dry? Do I want to be by the beach? So there's a lot of factors going into it.
Where do you want to live?
Where do you want to live?
Yeah.
What has your major? Some schools don't have your major. Where could you see yourself, getting a job after or...
Right. And you mentioned Penn State. They're still a powerhouse. We played Penn State in lacrosse, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and no disrespect to the school. But I remember going there and looking around and going, I couldn't go to school here. Like, I loved my experience at University of Delaware. I just couldn't do that. And it just was one of those, I go, being a West Coast kid to go to Penn State would be a huge difference. But the second thing that you kind of highlighted there as we were going through that was you change, or they change your position, or you change positions, however you want to say it. When you go to the next level, whatever that is, from middle school to high school, or high school certainly to college, there's a good possibility you're going to play a different position.
Luckily my dad was probably my longest standing coach, even though he didn't ever coach a team I was on except for my soccer team.
But anybody in the volleyball community looks at Butch as an absolute authority.
But you have to, and still to this day, even my coaching style, I want everybody to learn every position. Yep. You have to know what's going on every position. I don't care. Even soccer, if you're a forward, you better be in the goal a certain time or understand what the goalie's going through. Mm-hmm. You appreciate what they have to go through, and then it helps you work harder for them.
That's right.
But then they appreciate what they need to give you. Yeah. So I think a lot of sports are getting so specialized these days, and maybe the coaches don't want to spend time teaching each individual the other aspects of the game, but then you really pigeonhole yourself.
That's
and
right.
I think to make yourself more sellable, you have to be able to be adjustable, right? So you have to have you have to have all the tools. If you don't have all the tools, you're choices are going to be pretty limited in my opinion.
So this is, I think, a big takeaway for listeners. It doesn't matter your sport. We're talking about volleyball. This happens in lacrosse. It certainly happens in football. Someone could be a great wide receiver but have a quick first step and they go, actually be better in the backfield. Now you're a running back. Someone went there as a running back and they go, we have a great running back. You're going to be a safety. Baseball, you have a great arm at third base, but now we're going to make you a relief pitcher. And you have a choice to make. Do you want playing time in a game, or are you going to hold out for just your position? And another thing you just said right there is super valuable for young athletes, especially if you're looking to go play at the college level, is you have to be sellable, right? So when the coach does a home visit, they're selling the school, right? But also you just reference it again in that you're selling yourself as the athlete. And so there's buying and selling, for lack of a better term. It's what it is. And you're marketing yourself. This transfer portal is killing college sports, in my opinion. It's just too easy to leave. It used to be you had to sit out a year, so at least it made you think about it. Now if somebody doesn't get what they want, they pout and then they transfer. And so to me, I don't know that that's always the answer. I'm sure for some people it's a good idea if it's not a good scenario or situation. But in general, you got to develop some character skills.
But where does that stem from? And I think it stems from all these clubs and different, like the early goings. Because when we played club, you had one club. Either you made the club or you didn't make the club. Right. And it was like, okay, I have to sit behind somebody. And you actually had to work to get on the court. And because a lot of clubs now, they're selling space, right?
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, I'm going to have to sit behind the number one here. But if I go to this club, I'll be the number one. And so to me, sports is, even though I love sports, it's not valuing the character skills you need. So it's everybody wants that quick fit. I want to win. Okay, I'm going to go on to a winning team.
I know this is true. I know this is true. And again, these are like great lessons for parents and students to be listening to, because I have 4 children. One of them didn't make the team they wanted to be on. And we asked for some time with the director. So we went into the director and sat down and said, hey, listen, I know they didn't make the team. And the director's like, well, there's a lot that goes into this. I said, I'm not here to get an explanation from you. I would just like a to-do list. What do we need to work on?
What do we need to work on?
So give me that list and we'll get to work. And then we'll see you in a couple of weeks. How's that sound? He goes, this is so refreshing because nobody does that. I go, if we're not good enough to be on the team and we show up at these tournaments, we're not going to get playing time. That's another level of frustration. Give me the list. What do we got to do? Let's go work on it. And if that's the message for the listeners, work is required, right?
And that's in business. That's in anything. You have to go back to the drawing board and you have to be vulnerable to go in. And some athletes aren't willing to do that. They're quick to complain or pout. And it's like, what can I do to get better? But then as an athlete, you have to be a good listener, because you have to be willing to take the criticism or the constructive criticism and then imply it so then you can make the team the next time.
That's right.
But because we like to pat the kids on the back, nobody wants to hear what they do wrong or what they can't do.
Coaching is about hearing what you did wrong and then being willing to go make the changes. I also love what you said there about going in. We did an interview with Kent Bazemore, a guy that played for Lakers, Golden State Warriors, Atlanta, but just a real soulful guy. And he said, I had to allow myself some time to go in. And if a coach says you're not good enough to be on this team, you got to go in and go, okay, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to put it in. Or is it required of you to change a position to then get better, maybe something better suited for you in college than how you played in high school? This shouldn't be a shock to anybody, but it is a lot. Don't we see that in sports? It's like you were the all-star quarterback in high school, but now at the college level, actually, everybody's an all-star. And so you might wind up as a receiver. You're either open to it or you're not, but you got to get really clear. Flexibility and work is going to be the theme that continues to go through.
And that's going inside, like you said, and saying, what am I doing off the field? Is there more I could be doing? If I'm not receiving what I need to in practice, what other reps or what other things can I do outside? What other studying? It's classes. It's, even business. What other things can I study? What other things can I brush up on to get better?
And here's an advantage maybe to think about is when you mentioned playing other positions in sports, if you are an offensive player and you're learning what the defense is doing or being taught, you might even find a weakness in the person you're matched up against, and whatever, it could be basketball. But if you know it's supposed to be done this way, or this is how they're coached, you now have a mental edge because you go, oh, strategically, I can use this information against them. If you just have the blinders on and only know your role, whether it's the left side of the field, but I don't play the right side of the field, it's like, it doesn't work that way, right? And so even learning the opposing side, it's like, if you look at this philosophically and go, what is their strategy and how can I counteract it, or how can I, basically submerge their strategy and take their legs out? Well, then all of a sudden you're a much better athlete because you're playing the mental game. And that is required at the collegiate and professional level.
And that's what I tell, like, coaching indoor, a lot of liberos. We had DSs when I was in college, but the liberos now are a set defender that goes in.
Right.
A lot of them don't hit. They serve and they pass and they'll set some. Especially for the juniors, I'll have liberos hit or middle block because, like you said, if they can understand the mistakes that are being made up at the front, it makes their job so much easier. And that doesn't mean they have to play up front all the time, but get a feel for it because you just never know. It's like the beach game. With Holly, I was a blocker. We split time. Carrie, ideally the blocker, but I would go to the net sometimes to help relieve her, or we'd, share that responsibility. Nowadays, you see the shorter player, they'll scramble. They'll be in the worst positioning possible, and the taller player is still trying to get to the net when the little player could just, the smaller player could just stand there and block.
Right.
But because they don't practice it, it's not ideal for them.
There's that flexibility again.
Yeah, right. And that's what you have to be able to just adjust. You have to be able to just kind of let your mind go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Read the tempo, read the room,
right?
What is going on,
yeah, totally. And I think that was one of the things to your playing style was you were such an intelligent player that you would read the tempo, you would read it. And I think a lot of times because you were so steady, so consistent, like those are words that were always used by previous announcers for you, you put pressure on the other team. Not anything that you really did. It's just that you were flawless in your approach. And then a lot of times teams would implode or try too hard. But that flexibility meant that you didn't have a weakness in the game, right? So in 99, you left indoor. And I'm going to say this as an outsider looking in. The indoor game is dramatically different than the outdoor game when it comes to beach and indoor volleyball. It just seems like all of a sudden, it was very similar for a little while. Again, I'm a spectator talking about this. But all of a sudden, it's like, wow, is there a different skill set required in each? Some similarities, obviously, but generally speaking, can we say that there's almost like two different prototypes of players in each one?
Little bit, yeah. I would say the beach player has a more all-around game. If you threw a beach player into an indoor setting, they could pass and set and hit, where more adjustments need to be made. If you're an indoor player coming out, the timing's different. They got to figure out where the passing goes, their rhythm, the hitting the shots. Indoor is a very powerful game, and there's a certain system, and you have so many players on the court that you can only run certain plays at certain times, whereas the beach, it's a free-flowing. Right. It's more the Cirque du Soleil, right?
Yeah, no, I like that. It is.
Like the Cirque du Soleil just kind of flying around.
But it is more artistic, right? Like there's more creativity.
You can be creative.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying indoor you can't be creative, but it's become very high outside, middle, very standardized.
Yeah. And so in 99, when you left the indoor game and went to beach, was beach a huge sport in 2000, 2001?
So 1996 was the first time it became an Olympic sport in Atlanta. And so it was big. Brazil, a lot of tournaments down in Brazil. AVP, back then there was WPVA, AVP. AVP had some women, but it was more, I don't want to say a sideshow, but it kind of was.
Sure.
They would do an exhibition match in between, before the finals. And then there was a BVA tour that kind of took over, and that's where we started. And then AVP.
Cool.
We jumped in to the AVP. But no, I mean, it was big.
Your first gold was in 2004.
2004. But I played in Bondi. So my first Olympics was in Bondi.
Cool.
And it was there was a lot of controversy going around because they didn't want the stadium built in Bondi. So that was my first Olympic experience. I'm like, are we even going to get to play? Because they didn't want to build the stadium on the beach.
And Bondi Beach is beautiful, but it would be a picturesque place.
Yeah, so they did. Okay. So that's where we played. And then after that, that's when Carrie and I partnered and we went for Athens.
Athens 2004, that was a very special Olympics because it was like the 10,000 years of Olympic Games or something crazy like that. Like it was the 100-year centennial or whatever. So you went in 2004. Beijing was 2008?
In 2004, interesting. We were the first team. So I always get this on Debbie so they won silver in 84. And then we were the first team to win on the beach or indoor. Gold medal. For
USA?
For USA.
Gotcha. So you're really sweet there. And Debbie, she won silver.
I always get you,
Basically,
Debbie.
You lost gold. That's what an athlete
Pretty
would hear,
much.
right?
No.
I saw the subtle dig. I just thought I'd bring it to the surface for trash talking purposes. Yeah, she won silver. She lost gold. So first Team USA to win gold. You did that in 2004. In Athens, 2008, you were in Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2012 was in London.
Was London, which I didn't think I'd be back for.
Right.
I thought Beijing was going to be probably my last game.
So let's talk about that, if that's cool, because you also had an injury in between.
Yeah, so Matt and I got married. It was a very quick, year. We got engaged in March and then got married that November after the Olympics. And then it was one of these, when do we have a family? And I thought Beijing would be my last Olympics and then start a family. So I had a bunch of my close relatives over there. And then I got on Dancing with the Stars. So they met me when I arrived and was down Dancing with the Stars and ruptured my Achilles tendon.
Which was on film.
It snapped. Very interesting feeling. I talked to my brother. He had ruptured his patella tendon. So as soon as I did it, they were like, are you sure it's not a sprained ankle? I was like, yeah. No, I know. It feels like you get whacked from, it felt like I got whacked from behind. Yeah. So I injured that, had never had anything. That's probably the worst injury I've ever had, even though I have a knee replacement now.
Anybody would say that, I think. But here's to your credit again, like how well you know your body, how solid you are in who you are and what you do. They ask if you sprained your ankle. You're like, no, I definitely ruptured Achilles. Like, I know what I'm talking about. It's bad. I'm not here for drama. Misty is not about the drama. It's just like, no, dude, I ruptured.
You're taking a step. There is no floor. There is no ending point to that.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah. But I was a kinesiology major in college, and my mom, being a adapted PE teacher, she had mentioned if you want to go high level in sports, maybe use that as your major so you learn about your body. That's which awesome. I thank her every day because I feel like I'm very in tune with my body. I understand, how I'm supposed to feel, what it's supposed to feel.
So what's crazy about that is you ruptured it, and then in a sport where vertical leap is a huge part of it, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, an undersized player, and I watched you.
How dare you? No, I'm kidding.
says the guy who's also 5'9" with shoes on. But I watched you practice in Huntington Beach and getting ready for the Olympics, and everybody was like 6'2" rolling up there. And I'm like, how is she going to hang? And you dominated. You didn't just hang. You dominated. So as a 5'9" player who then has a ruptured Achilles, you go on to win your third gold medal.
It's from previous injuries as well. So I had I tore my PCL in college, and I've always used injuries as a hurdle, right? Yeah. And especially my mom passing put a lot of things into perspective. Mm-hmm. She got to see me play in Sydney, but that was the extent of that. So putting everything in perspective, it's just a hurdle, right? Mm-hmm. How bad do you want something to be able to come back? And our bodies are so interesting. And I think one of the best muscles we have is our brain, right?
I love it.
So whatever we tell upstairs what we want to do, it can be done. Right. And even if you're not competing and you're coming back from an injury and you're just going through visualization, those muscles are still firing and you're still basically training without training.
That's right.
So when I hurt my Achilles, I actually didn't plan on playing. And then there happened to be a USA versus Brazil event in Phoenix. And I was way overweight and I shouldn't have been anywhere in a bathing suit. But I played But I
I'm
played with
talking to one of my
Carrie.
daughters for crying out loud.
But I played with Carrie, and we ended up coming in second. We beat the Brazil team in pool play, and then we came in second. And I said, this was about 10 months after the surgery. And I was like, okay, this is something I think I can do. I think I have one more in me. I put family on hold, and that was a tough conversation. But I think as an athlete, I don't want to say finish. I got lucky. I finished on my terms or did everything I needed. But I think as a parent, we want to spend time with our kids. And so it was important, get it out of the system.
Yeah.
And then we started our family later. But I was able to bounce back from that. And with the help of you and personal, the physical therapist and the pool and my 80% in London, most people would say, wow, you haven't lost anything, was my 100%. So I knew I'd never be the same.
Right.
But if you work hard enough, you balance it out. And that's with our bodies. It's like our bodies know how to make up for the differences,
And this is why she is the GOAT of beach volleyball. That's not a light term to throw out. It's the greatest of all time. Your 80% was still good enough for gold. And when you talk about visualizing yourself while you were injured, that is a massive part of the recovery for all athletes. So to sit down and say, look, I'm going to visualize myself healing, healthy, whole. I'm going to see myself in recovery mode. You have to do that. And I don't know the exact percentage, but it's something like 30 to 35% of the smooth muscles are twitching and firing as you think the thoughts of the motions you're going to do when you make a full recovery. The body's actually synapsing and firing those things. And so the coordination of action mentally is equal to what you were to do it out there if you were going 3/4 speed or something like that. Obviously not as comparable if you're going full tilt, but the opposite of that is to do nothing.
Right.
To imagine yourself being done and career ending, and then your body's working against itself. So again, going back to your physiology degree, your mom's advice, see yourself, use this to your advantage if this is how you're going to do it. And again, at the top of this conversation, I just said, like, your mental fortitude is huge. So you at 80% was good enough to win the 3rd gold medal as an undersized athlete who's now snapped her Achilles. Your vertical leap wasn't the same after that.
No.
So to then play with a bad wheel, if you will, and then still to go out there and dominate, and you did, was huge.
So I knew the mental side, and I feel every game. Do I want to say, yes, I got physically stronger? I learned how to train smarter, I guess. Physically, as we get older, right, it's going to go down. But I felt mentally, it picked up. So as one shift happens, the other one has to
What I loved about that for selfish reasons is I gave you an invite like, hey, if you ever need it, I'll come see you on the weekends. I'll jump in the office on Sunday. And then I would bring Georgia in with me on Sundays, and we'd get you adjusted and get you chiropractic care on the weekends. And sometimes it was that, but it was really cool because you would hang out with her and kick a soccer ball, and those are memories she still has. But she's like, Misty's my friend. I'm like, I might be stretching that word a little bit, but the idea is it was just a really cool bond to see that. But you were so in tune with your body 7 days a week going into the games. You were prepping and preparing and rehabbing. You did everything you needed to do. And then I'm going to make a really quick transition before we talk about that 3rd gold. But I also saw you do that when you decided you wanted to start having babies. And you just said, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is what I'm going to do. And, just your ability to have twins and just kind of like no big deal. But it was just really like the way your approach, I guess, and all of this is just so confident. And I think it's contagious, right? And even playing with Carrie that 3rd Olympics, like, you were dominant out there. And then you also knew, like, okay, on my terms, I'm done. But again, you could go down the list of GOATs, Michael Jordan, Misty. We've got these athletes who just decide on their terms when they're done and they finish on top. That's a really cool exclamation point to a story career.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think finishing on, every athlete wants to finish on top. And I feel like I left the game in a good place, and it was time to pass the torch. We got young guns headed to Paris, and we kind of laid that foundation. It's time to it's their time now. Do I still enjoy it? Yes, I go out and play on Thursdays and still enjoy it. But going back to also the mental side, parents out there, from a coaching aspect, when your player's injured, have them go to practice and watch and just learn and take it in. That's huge. Like you said, you're still learning, even though you don't feel like you're part of it. You can handballs, you can jag, you can sit on the sideline, you can listen to what the coaches is saying, because when the coach isn't talking to you, they are talking to you.
That's right. And there's no ego involved, so you can't get emotionally hurt, but you can you can absorb it.
So it's much more than the physical, right? It's much more than the physical. But no, finishing on top is, amazing.
Yes.
And maybe I knew when to stop. I was like, okay. But I ended up getting a knee replacement as well, my whole left side shot. But with the help of chiropractic care and the PT, just keeping me together, I felt like I was able to make that, third gold medal run.
I love it. And being a part of it was super fun for me. So thanks for including me. We took the family to the London Games. That was awesome. And even that, like at Justin Youth, they're like, how was it? I'm like, it was part of a routine. So it's what we did. Like, was it extra special? I'm like, okay, I guess it was. It's
the table was very heavy.
It was super heavy. Do you remember that thing? And because of security, I had to carry 4 blocks.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm sweating right now.
Heavy.
I brought an extra shirt, but the security blocked off. Like the security is crazy in London. And so, I had this petrified wood for a chiropractic table that had to weigh 600 pounds. It was crazy.
But I think as you get older, maintaining.
Yeah.
You got to maintain.
Love it. And just not taking time off. I think as a mom, you've done a really good job of incorporating healthy activities into your routine as well. We were talking about childbirth. You decided to basically natural childbirth, and this is how I want to do it.
All 3 natural, yeah.
All 3 natural. And you just decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And Matt and I would talk on the side, and he's like, hey, we have twins. This is a good idea. I go, dude, if anybody can do this, it would be your wife and my wife. You don't mess with them when they're locked in. Bro, they got it, So now we're going to the Paris Olympics.
But the husbands and they're an integral part in that as well, because there comes a point during childbirth where, now I can't say this ever happened on the court. I was like, I just want to throw in the towel. But there comes a point in childbirth that it's at some point you're getting talked into different things, or you just feel like I can't do it. And that's where it's important for the gentleman to step up. And
that's right.
It's they can be that coach. You got that,
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's official term is transition, where there's just that, I'm tired, I don't know. And it's oh, we're here. And it's no, you do have this.
So you need that other person to be that cheerleader and you got this.
I love it. Paris is coming up. And so we're going to be there as the announcing team, the commentary team, not we, but you are. You're going to be there doing the announcing for the Olympics. And
I will for beach volleyball, yes.
For beach volleyball. What I love about that is I think it's an acknowledgement you are the GOAT, and also your humor and your lightness, because when you do come into the office, they're some of my favorite days. I mean, it's and sometimes I have to wonder if I'm laughing too loud, because it's playful, it's fun, it's just your natural nature. It's just to be playful. And I think knowing what your natural default is really important in life. And so if you're sitting in an airport, you're hanging out, I watch you mix and mingle with people, and it's always super light. It's a choice. It doesn't have to be heavy. And so I'm really excited for people to hear you through NBC, on television, through these Olympics. But I've also sat here with Gina Urango and Sarah Hughes, and naturally your name came up multiple times. Sarah Hughes gives you a world of credit. She's a gold medal, expectant in this games, and that's a lot of pressure to say, hey, you're number 1 going in, you should win it. And it's oh gosh, so, but the amount of love and praise you have from everybody within the sport is really cool, because to be number 1, it can be adversarial, and you've chosen to be more of a diplomat. So explain that a little bit about just choosing kindness over competitiveness.
At the end of the day, it's a game, and it's how do you want to see yourself after? And I feel I hope I'm respected by all my peers.
Oh, for sure you are, yeah.
That was one of the things important to me, was being respected by the fans and the peers, and not changing. I don't think I've changed. You can talk to my coaches, and they're like, you haven't changed a bit, and I think you have to be the authentic you. Mm-hmm. And let that shine. But I've always respected my opponents. We wouldn't be doing, I wouldn't be having the career without the fans. Right. And just making sure that you're thankful for what you've been given, and that's kind of how I've carried myself. And I feel like I've surrounded myself with a team or a group of team, or I've cut anchors loose that weren't the best,
cut anchors loose.
If they are weighing you down or not propelling you up making you shine, then that's, they're the wrong people. And I'm not saying make you shine by like, oh, patting you on the back of the head and like, oh, you're the best. But you want people in your corner that make you a better person. Yeah. And if they're not there, then it's okay. Somebody will come along. If you let that one go, somebody will come along. Or you don't need a big group at all. Yeah. If you're secure with yourself, it's okay to be alone.
That's right. And yeah. When you are a good person, being in your own company is a good thing. It's like, hey, I could be here too. But I think you've done that so well for so many people. It was just really sweet to hear, those two, Sarah and Gina, but also other people in the sport just talk about you with great reverence. And then they also acknowledge the fact that you helped explode the sport. I mean, the energy on the court, when you guys would win your gold medals and the celebrations, and it just really took off in like 2011, certainly after the 2012 games. And then 2013, 14, all of a sudden you just saw this huge influx. And then I've sat down with people who have the actual statistics. It's now the fastest growing sport for American girls, and they are girls, and they're, getting involved in the sport at a much earlier age and just having fun. And you're a big advocate of multiple sports. Don't pigeonhole yourself in too soon. But if this could be one of the three you're playing or whatever it is, it's a great sport. It's a good athlete sport. And then, just to really kind of carry that through, I'm a big fan of NCAA Title IX and just having like men's and women's sports. And I played college sports, but it's really nice to see our daughters have those opportunities to play. In Georgia just won her national championship. So when you saw University of Tampa, beach volleyball team in the airport.
They were in the airport. I was like, where are you? Oh, okay.
So you have some diehards. So just a quick shout out to them.
Brooke Dow. Yeah.
You have some huge fans, but you just have that impact wherever you go. Like people just adore you after meeting you one time. Talk about that a little bit of just sharing that light. You talked about that shining, because I think that's big too, is that you can be competitive and get on the court and give it all you got, but you got to be able to step off and hold your head. Win or lose, you got to be a good person, come off the court.
Oh yeah, my dad would say, if your grandmother's tied to the other side and she's in a wheelchair and tied to the floor, you still want to put the smack down on her, right? And we'd say this to kids too. You can be a lady off the court, but when you're on the court, be an animal. Like,
let it go.
And so that's why I always kept that straight face. It's like, I want to beat you. We're all there for one thing. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is a game, right? You're only one person can win, one person, and I don't even want to say lose, but comes up short, because you can always go back to the drawing board and try to not make that same mistake or those same mistakes that cost it for you. But at the end of the day, respecting your opponents makes you better. And, just having that goal in mind to be the best, to make yourself better every day, and not huge amount. When I coach, I say, if you can make yourself 1% better, you make the teammates around you better. As a whole, the team gets better, right? So, but just working on small percentages of getting better, because if you try to work in a large percentage or try to do everything every day, you'll start to see wheels fall off, and you'll think you're failing if you're not getting what you want out of it. So just make small leaps and bounds and really appreciate the, when you make it to a goal, right? Yeah. Embrace it, appreciate it, and then move on. Right.
But I think that's huge too, is just celebrate. Because there's other
celebrate people the little moment, like celebrate the little
There's people taking you to these tournaments. There's people spending time in airports with you, namely your parents, right? And they're sacrificing as well, and they're pouring in as well. So it is important to celebrate, to be appreciative, thank them for that. And then, it's back to work. It's time to move on. And that's always been your thing, I think, is consistency, discipline. And then you do a really good job of taking athletic disciplines and things that help you and then making that a metaphor for life. And I think that really becomes the true nature of sports. As I get older, I realize it isn't like how many wins and losses you have or what's your batting average for life. It's how does that translate into other areas of your life, because it's preparing you for those things. And if you can always be a good teammate, then you're going to be a good family member. If you can be a good family member, you're going to be part of a big, team or work environment or corporation or whatever it is, or be a good entrepreneur and think for yourself. But it goes back to those basic tenets you probably learned in sports. you being at the Paris Olympics, you inspiring so many of the players and then getting to commentate on that. I just want to highlight that because I want people to tune in when they see you on TV, when they see beach volleyball and they hear from you, like, this is the GOAT behind the sport. There's so many people that would emphatically agree with me that I'm not taking votes on that. What would be some final questions or thoughts? Because I do some of these interviews with Matt and I would love to do that next time with Matt sitting here. But what would be some questions I should have asked you or final thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
I think just in life, you can't be afraid to fail. The only way to get better is by making mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen, and you can't be afraid to make mistakes, and look at life. I love doing puzzles, and I've told you this before. I love doing puzzles, and puzzles, you have to look at the pieces in different manners. You got to walk around the table. Because just about the time you think a piece is going to fit, you walk to a different side. It does not look the same, and you're like, it's not working. So I think you got to take things in and look at different perspectives all the time. Mm-hmm. Even when you're with your mate or your partner, you're talking, look at, talk back and forth, look at things from their side, look at things from the outside. And I think that's where, I stay pretty even.
You're super even. Yeah.
Sometimes I need more emotion. I cry when animals die. People die in movies. I'm like, he deserved it.
We're all there
what were they doing? Yeah. Or she deserved,
Well, but, I saw your Instagram message about putting earmuffs on your dogs for fireworks and protecting their ears and some of those things. It was really sweet. But I want people to see that side of you too, which is the compassionate side that you have. And very much in business and in life, if you look at a problem like a problem, then it's daunting, it's overwhelming, it requires work, and it's almost like the wrong approach. But if you look at a problem as a puzzle, and you just got to get
piece by piece. You can't fix it all in one day. I mean, if I could fix everything, that's where my mind goes. We start a foundation, and if I could fix all the world's problems, I would love to do that. Yep. It's even me. I'm still learning even through the foundation process. We were able to raise in a couple days $10,000 for a family in Maui, and you put some poles in Maui after the Maui fires? Put some volleyball courts? No, nothing yet. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to go. We've gone back over there, but they just cleared out. So I want to figure out how to help the kids, over there. But with everything with the Olympics, my focus has been on Paris. But we were able to raise some money. And then rubbing off on my daughters, I wanted them to be able to give back or start to use their brains. Like, what can we do to make someone else's day better? And so at school, they their school raised some money in one day and we gave it to the animal shelter over in Hawaii to help with the animals there. Just recently, I did a volleyball clinic for the school, just for the school only, to help raise funds for the PE department so they could, get new pickleball paddles and different things that they haven't had.
Love it.
In like 50 years.
Yeah.
But I feel like the only way for me to become a better person, and we're trying to teach the kids this, is it's not about what you have, it's about giving. The more you give away, the better I feel. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. If I can help and
I would say success and fulfillment need to go hand in hand, because you've had a ton of success on the court and the gold medals and the attention. And what I'm hearing you say is now you've also kind of opened up the curtain a little bit and said, but really what I'm focusing on is fulfillment, teaching my daughters to have that fulfillment, and that giving is the receiving, right?
We're trying.
Well, I would say you and Matt are like gold medal parents. Honestly, like, that guy is a saint for how he's a father. The way you teach your daughters, how you choose different approaches, different languages with each one of them, because they're three totally different girls. But it's really fun to see you guys parent the way you do, to teach the lessons the way you do, but also just be in the moment, and the giggles that happen even when you're in the chiropractic office. Like, I love it. I mean, it's really sweet to see you enjoy each phase of life, not just the athletics, but also parenting, mothering, phenomenal spouse, and giving back to causes like Maui after the fires, and then with the animal shelters. Like, it's just so Misty. So hopefully today we put a little spotlight on some of the things people didn't know. And if it's okay, I'd love to do this again with Matt sit here, and I'm sure that would be a comedy session. But Paris Olympics are coming up. You are the GOAT. You've helped so many of these young women become future gold medalists, and they appreciate you. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you too, because you've been great to my kids. So totally appreciate you.
No worries. And just remember, you're only guaranteed today. So
love it.
Guaranteed today.
Carpe
Do what
diem.
you can too.
Carpe diem.
Make it the best day.
You'll see Paris 2024. Misty will be all over the place, and we'll catch you there, everybody. Hey, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Misty May-Treanor. If you enjoyed it, please remember to follow this podcast. If you could leave us a 5-star review, man, that goes a million miles. And if you really think this is worthy, share it with something who would benefit from the lessons from our 3-time Olympic gold medals. As you can see, those are timeless pieces of advice, and she lives it. She exemplifies it. She's a phenomenal role model. But make sure you don't miss the second interview I'm going to do with her, which is all about her performance, all about the things she did to recover and rehab, because there was just far too much to do in a single interview. So I'm going to sit back down with her. And for you to not miss it, my best advice is follow us, leave a 5-star review, and if you wouldn't mind, share this with someone who would benefit from the same lessons you enjoyed. That was Misty May-Treanor. Her husband is Matt Treanor, professional baseball player of 10 years. They have great genetics, perfect DNA makeup for the 3 beautiful daughters who come into the office every Tuesday for Tune-Up Tuesday in their chiropractic care. And I think if they have phenomenal DNA coding and genetic makeup as they do, and they still bring their kids in, I think your children will benefit by seeing a chiropractor too. Hey, I'm all about performance. My name is Dr. Brad Glowaki. Join us next time on Grow with Glow.